What did you do different with your people that all of a sudden brought that business to life?
Not much.
Just paid attention to
I
them?
just paid attention to them.
That's really what it comes down to, Corey.
I decided to just start showing up for my people, and all of a sudden business just...
Welcome back to Life at 10 Tenths, where we inspire you to live at the pinnacle of your ability and purpose. Garrett Fry here with Matt and Ellie and a special guest today, Corey Chambers, and we are doing a realtor spotlight for Life at 10 Tenths, and I am so grateful. Corey has been on this journey with us since we started Life at 10 Tenths, right from the beginning, and I'm grateful to have him in. Corey, good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you guys for having me.
Oh, Corey, we're excited to have you, man.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you on. You have an incredible journey of real estate and life. And let me give a little background here right up front. Corey's with Compass Real Estate. He is in Plano, Texas. He's been a licensed realtor since 2017. And one of the reasons I love doing these spotlights is every realtor has a story. They're all unique. They're all their own journeys. But sometimes in real estate, we get so used to comparing ourselves to what others are doing, the successes that people have. I have people come to me that go, look, I don't want to hear any more about the person that did $2 million in 1 year in gross commissions. It's great. It's exciting. But I need to hear people that are going through the normal journeys of real estate and still having amazing successes and amazing wins and amazing growth. And I find that those are the best stories to tell. Those are the real people of real estate out here. And Corey, you're about as real as it gets, man. I have enjoyed getting to know you over the past, handful of months, as well as we knew each other before. But let's jump into this today. I'm excited to share some time with you.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if you'd call me normal, but I appreciate
You're not normal. I'm sorry for even putting you in the normal category.
Well, and even though we're not sharing Corey as a 2 million GCI producer now, it doesn't mean he won't be someday. I think
I hope to be.
Yeah, I think the story though too, like the mindset journey on this process too, the Corey of what you went through not very long ago would have been enough for people to say I'm out. And you didn't, right? You're still here, you're fighting and you're growing, which is amazing.
And I want to not take away the $2 million piece here, because I think that, along this journey of real estate and the growth that we have and where we go to, the reason I said it that way is some people get into real estate in 2017 and of all the things they hear, they expect in a year that they're supposed to flick the light switches on and they have that level of success. And for most of you, you grow through it and you build and you build and you build and you have all these checkpoints and these markers and you build this really solid foundation. And the foundation is what most people don't get to hear about. And that's where I watch you, Corey, is this foundation that you're building and what you're growing and where you're going. Oh my gosh, those results will be there. But let's jump in. I'm excited to do this.
Well, let's start with that, the foundation. I mean, you're at a point in your career, Corey, where a lot of real estate agents are. There's a lot of people who got licensed in the late teens, right before COVID, maybe even in COVID, which you have a few more years of runway before that. But kind of you're in that, I'll call it the class of realtors who kind of have not, you're still newish, right? You've made it past the 5-year mark, which is a really good milestone, but not as tenured as the people who saw the crash and all that stuff, but you're building a lot of success and using your relative experience here. So give us a little bit of the foundation of your career and what's gotten to where you are today.
So I got licensed back in February 2017. And the reason why I got licensed was I needed to upgrade my home. At that point, I'd moved 31 times. I had already been a homeowner and I knew the process. So it's like, okay, we need to sell this home. We need to buy a new home.
What caused you to move 31 times, by the way?
We had a lot of childhood stuff, background past, where we moved almost every year on the year. And then I've lived in, I grew up in Phoenix. I've lived in Ohio, moved back to Phoenix, moved to California, and then was transferred to Texas.
Okay. All right.
Well, that was also that. And then your career too, your career prior to real estate was quite the traveling career as well.
It was. When I started with that, actually, that's what moved me to California. I was recruited at a wedding where the wife of the owner of the company was somebody who I knew and had a connection with a church camp. And she goes, "Well, do you like to travel?" It's like, "Oh, I love to travel. Do you want to travel for work?" So yeah, that sounds like a blast. At the time, I was 24, single, no kids, nothing like that. It's like, okay, yeah, this sounds like fun. So I had a long interview process, moved from Phoenix to California, and there's a couple other big backstory details with that we won't go into. But the first year, well, yeah, the first year I traveled about 85-90% of the time.
Ooh.
I've actually worked in 44 states in person.
Why even have a home?
I thought that a lot. I was like, I'm living in California. I'm only here one day a week, like basically to do laundry and then repack my suitcase and fly back out.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was before American Airlines bought out US Airways. I hit chairman status, 100,000 miles in the air in the first 6 months of working for the company.
I have to ask you, when they sold this to you on traveling, is this the traveling that you were thinking of? Because when I was thinking
Oh,
traveling,
no.
do you like to travel? You're like, well, I like Hawaii, I like Bali, I like all these places. And so did you get to travel to the fun ones, or where did you go?
Oh, I was traveling all over. I mean, one week it would be Boston, and the next week it would be Florida. And granted, I'm living in California. And then
Okay.
the next week it would be Colorado, and then Texas, then Chicago. And it got so bad to where actually this is what moved me to Texas. It got so bad at that point where I was in a different city every single night for weeks in a row. And I woke up in the Hilton Buckhead Hotel and I didn't know what day it was. Like, where are we? What day is it? So ended up going to the owner of the company and saying, "David, I've got to move or I'm done. I can't keep this up."
Yeah.
So he's like, "Okay, well, go get a cup of coffee, and come back in about 10-15 minutes." So I go get a cup of coffee, come back, and he's like, "Yeah, you've been burning the road up. I get it. So do you want to move to Chicago or do you want to move to Dallas?" Okay, I'll go to Dallas. I don't like the cold that much, and I don't want to shovel the driveway after being gone on the road for 5 days. And I know people in Dallas. So I moved to Dallas 3 weeks later.
That life on the road, there's only so many people that can pull that off in our industry of speaking and teaching and training. There are certain ones that are road warriors that can do it. My dad was what we call a road warrior, could pull it off. You can only do that for so long, and then you're like, this is not for me. This being on the road this much can really take a wear on you. So was that the point that you decided to take the step into real estate, or where are we at timeline right now?
So timeline, I lived in Texas, bought a house, sold a house, bought a house, got married, had a kid. Um, my wife and I were pregnant with our second child, and my wife was, that's what spurred the move and me getting my license. Been licensed for about 7-8 months and had almost matched my income from doing the traveling
Wow.
Wow,
in the
good
first
job.
couple of months. And my wife was getting really stressed about being at home with 2 kids and 2 dogs and me being on the road all the time. She's like, I really want you to make that transition. And I don't care if it's full time in real estate or what it is, but I need you home. So that was in the back of my mind. Um, we didn't go over this before, but my daughter, a couple days before I quit my job, my daughter was sitting at the coffee table, scribbling on yellow Post-it notes, like scribbling, crumpling it up and throwing it, and scribbling, crumpling up and throwing it. I walked up and I'm like, "Elaine, what are you doing?" And she goes, "Well, I'm writing notes to you, Dad." Like, "What did the notes say?" She goes, "I'm scared of meetings. I'm scared of when you go."
Oh,
Whoa.
So a couple days later,
And your daughter's 3 at the time, right?
my daughter's 3 at the time. So I'm on my lunch break at home, run to Costco, take Elena with me. So she's sitting in the car and I get a call from my bosses. I'm like, can I call you now? Like, no, this has to be now. So we ended up doing that, having about an hour and a half phone call where I'm pacing Costco with my daughter in the shopping cart, trying to remember what I'm supposed to be getting at the store. And I ended up quitting that job in Costco and saying, well, if it doesn't seem like you're going to be happy with what I'm doing, let me go ahead. I'm going to give you 2 months notice. How does end of the year sound? You can find a replacement if you want me to train them, because I was the trainer. I'm happy to train them. If you don't want me to train them, I understand. And this will be a good parting ways.
So you did leave out the part of your daughter writing you handwritten note, writing you notes. And I wanted to just go back to that for a second, because children don't pull any punches. They will tell you exactly what's on their mind, exactly how they feel. They don't sit there and go, I don't want to hurt daddy's feelings or like that. Like they will just put it out there. And what a powerful moment that she gave to you. Not even realizing she was doing it, but to allow you then to be at that space when you're like, all right, guys, here's my 2 weeks. This has been real, but I got to go. What an awesome moment there.
I still have those notes in a plastic bag on my desk.
Wow. What a good reminder. Now, so if I heard you correct, you started to have some real estate success because you've already started to realize, okay, I can make some money doing this other thing. My wife has said, I'd love to have you home more often and have some more support around the house. Now you get hit with this. And then this is one of those moments of like, well, the writing's on the wall. I got to go. Is that what I'm hearing?
Pretty much, yeah. It was the writings on the wall. And I was frustrated. My wife was being upset with the frustration that I was bringing into the house and some of that energy. And it just was a bad situation all the way around. And it was becoming very apparent that it was not going to work with that company anymore.
Yeah.
So I ended up going full-time into real estate when my son was 2 weeks old.
So we're still back in 2000. What year are you on right now?
So I went full-time in real estate January 1st, 2018.
2018 is where we're getting into this now. So you got a little runway of about a year or so, 2 years right now before we enter into something that we could have never even imagined in real estate or in our world. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. I don't need to go any deeper into that. How was your real estate from that moment you decided to go full-time into it, to say, okay, this is my full-time career. I know I can make some money in this. I know I can cover some of my, make my life work. How did that go up until, let's say, 2020, about February?
It went okay. I know you wanted to kind of get into some numbers and everything. So I was doing about 3.5 million on average every year. Doing a lot of online chasing leads. I tried Zillow. I was stupid. I tried it twice because the first time failing it wasn't enough, and I had to get suckered back in and tried it a second time when I tried to do a teen type thing. And then I was just so frustrated with everything. And I got introduced to more of a relationship based selling system just after COVID, because during that time period, I was really frustrated with chasing online leads and doing a Facebook form of online lead generation where I would have about 150 to 200 online leads come in every month.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing it by myself. And if anybody's worked leads, that's not sustainable.
When working 100 to 200 leads a month and then producing about 3.5 million in volume for the year off of that. So the conversion has to be pretty darn low on that too.
Online leads are just horrifically low conversion in general. And then it's not fun to work those.
Well, and it's interesting too. At 3.5 million, it's kind of one of these little traps, because you're making money, you're surviving. I mean, things are working. And I know there's a lot of realtors out there that are kind of caught in that area of like, I'm not running the business I want. I'm not hitting the numbers that I want. But at the same point, I'm buying leads. I know this works. I know I'm making, $3.5 million in volume pumping through here. So to go and then say, I'm going to toss that, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to switch over here to this relationship side. Because you'd mentioned you tried, the different programs. You had different programs that had come in. You found, and I think it's fine. We talked Ninja is where, background is here with you, and you found Ninja that worked well for you. You took those systems in. And so let's talk a little bit about from that moment of changing from buying leads, Zillow, that type of stuff, to saying, okay, I'm going to pour myself into my database. How did that transition work for you?
So I went to a Ninja installation in January, first week of January in 2021. And after the installation, I completely cut off all leads coming in.
Wow.
Halfway through it. My business went up 50%, 52% that year.
Wow. Good for you.
Wow. That's amazing.
Then the following year, it went up 59%.
When you look at the difference of how you were focusing on you, because usually what I find is when you start to open up that relationship side of your business and you start to pour in and building stronger relationships, stronger connections with people, and that's what I have focused on with people forever is like, get to know these people that are right around you instead of going out here and, fostering all these strangers, like who's right in front of you. What did you do different with your people that all of a sudden brought that business to life?
Not much.
Just paid attention to
I
them.
just paid attention to them.
That's really what it comes down to, Corey.
I decided to just start showing up for my people, and all of a sudden business just, 52% is huge. And then the next year, another 59%, so you're in this 3 to 3.5 million for years and years and years. And then coming out of a pandemic, you're like, yeah, I'm just going to cross 4 million, 5 million in volume, just like that. And probably working, whether you were working less or the same, you were probably having a lot more fun working that system.
I was working less and I was having a lot more fun.
My most favorite part, again, when you look at that system that you're following, like, is in where I find most of the success happens that you're talking about is just leaning back into the relationships with your people, which, as you know, I mean, it's easy. It's not as hard as we kind of turn it into our head. I think we turn it into a business and we make it a mess. And really what it is like just genuine relationships, genuine people get back into it. So at some point going through this journey, though, you came to a place, as you were telling me, that you were not in a great spot. You weren't maybe having the successes that you wanted to have. And you actually ended up hiring a specific coach to help you through kind of a tough time. You want to kind of go through that, because I find everybody thinks that this business is always like, once you figure it out, it's just up and going. And the reality is that there are peaks and valleys that we go through along this, which we're going to share even more than that. But just talk about this moment that you said, I think I need to hire a coach.
Even that first year where I added about 50% to my business, it was still a very rocky, challenging year. And that was when I brought in James. And James was instrumental in kind of helping me change my mindset and really bringing a lot of these things in, which was, my mindset was kind of broken. And we spent a lot of time on, okay, well, what is your why? I didn't really have a big why in that. How to find joy in the little things. And that's something I really want to come back to later. And just what makes you, what makes you tick? What is your relationship with things like money? What is your relationship with your kids, your spouse? All of these things we kind of worked on, honed that in. And how do I step away and be better for myself? And the oxygen mask principle of, if I don't take care of myself first, I can't take care of anybody else. And I got to the point where I wasn't taking care of myself and I couldn't take care of anybody else.
Now, going into that, like you said, the mindset was the first thing that you guys dove in on, which is outrageously important. But getting into that, were you more expecting and looking for, and depending on where your mindset was at the time, like kind of more performance based, like, hey, what systems can I like execute on better to just run the business better? What was your expectation going in, and was this mindset piece something you thought that was going to be explored at least early on in that relationship?
Well, Garrett was really specific on that. He's like, this is not a silver bullet. When I first talked to him after after that, he's like, this is not a silver bullet. And obviously when you go into a coaching type platform, you want what the silver bullet is. And I kind of knew in the back of my mind that we needed to get through and kind of figure out and dive down and rebuild that foundation in order to really move forward.
Yeah.
Because you have to slow down to move fast at times.
I find, Matt, and maybe you want to share in this too, not taking this away from Corey for a second, but you can probably jump into this also, that for the most part, I find when we start a coaching relationship with somebody one-on-one, it's exactly what you said, Matt. They're looking for the, what do I do? Who should I be calling? What script should I be using? All this stuff. And 9 times out of 10, it's like, okay, we need to figure out your mind first and kind of where your mind is and all the things that are going on inside. And it's probably the piece that holds people back the most. And all of a sudden you can figure out the belief system and you can figure out where your mind's getting stuck. And then all of a sudden, all these systems are like, they can be allowed to work at their highest level. All these scripts, all these dialogues, all these systems, like they can flourish when your mind's in the right spot. And Corey, I know that's what happened to you.
Yeah. And if I didn't have that, what happened 6 months ago, I would not be sitting here with you guys.
So we're going to get into this 6 months ago. Before we do, you had shared with us what came out of the mindset work, which set you on the path, and that'll kind of be the foreground for this this incident that you'll share. So you came up with an incredible framework that you now basically drive everything through. Tell us a little bit about that.
I never really had a big, clear vision statement. When I started my business, it was you're always told, well, you need to have a vision statement. You need to have your mission statement. And I never was able to really get clear on that. And that's something that James and I worked on extensively was what are your core pillars? What makes you you? And I came up with the statement to live and to give abundantly, to serve those who I care about, and to feed mine and my family's soul with adventure.
I love that last part, to feed the soul with adventure. Because that brings in the joy factor, I think, in everything that you do, versus like, well, yeah, this looks like I can get a commission check off of this, so I guess I'll do it, even though it doesn't, align with anything else, but it'll help kind of the bank account a little bit right now, right? So what has that done for you then? Over, because you developed that in about what, 22, right? So, or beginning of 23-ish. So going through 23, which was a pretty good year for you, right? How did that vision statement allow you to align yourself with your business and your lifestyle so that you could be comfortable in how that was running?
So 23 actually was a slight down year from 22 for me.
Okay.
I was down about 18 to 20%.
Wow.
So it was really just honing back in on the building blocks of everything. And if this doesn't fit where I'm going, it doesn't happen.
Now, 23 being a down year financially, when did you have that vision statement crafted?
It was middle of 23.
Okay. So then beginning of 23, maybe. So tell us a little bit about that 2023 year and what happened after that vision statement was crafted.
So after that vision statement was crafted, I actually crafted that when I was on one of my solo trips. I started taking these trips as kind of a break away from the business, where it was once a month. I get out and I get into the wilderness because I love the outdoors. That's something that it makes me very happy. And I needed that step away break from this thing that just tethers you to everything. So I would go out and just sit in the wilderness. A lot of times it would be by myself. Sometimes I'd take clients. Sometimes I'd take family. And it was just fun. Sit by the campfire, have a glass of bourbon, and just unplug.
So then what happened the second half of 23? You've been doing these solo journeys. You crafted this statement. You come back from thinking about this on one of your outdoor adventures. What changes?
Everything just kind of clicked. It's not a magic bullet. It was just doing the same activities and repeating it and staying in contact with my people and just working on the mental aspect, but also feeding into my sphere.
So what I find is when people have a central vision like this, one that really resonates with them, and I can tell as you talk about it, and you said it before we even started recording, like it rolled off your tongue, and I could hear your energy come up as you said it. Having one of those, what I have seen is allows people to see the nuances around them that fit into this vision. That allows them to go, oh, that fits, that fits. Okay, I'm gonna ignore that. That doesn't fit into it. Okay, I'm gonna do more of this over here because that fits into it. How did you implement this vision into your life? Was it something that you woke up and said? Was it something that you surrounded yourself with? Did you have it put into a frame and hung on the wall? Like, how did you take this and say, okay, this is now my framework, and here's how I'm moving forward, and here's how I'm going to make sure I never forget it? How did you do that?
I made it my screen, my phone screen wallpaper.
Okay.
So every time you touch it to see if there's a notification, it popped up.
Awesome.
So that was the big thing, and then I filtered that through also with my weekly business agenda, where it was, okay, am I following through with this or not? What am I doing that I should be doing? What am I doing that what am I doing that I should not be doing?
Give us an example of that. You know, one time you're sitting there doing your weekly agenda and you're comparing it with your vision statement. What was something that maybe you were doing and you're like, oh, wait, I shouldn't be doing that, or something you were doing, you're like, ooh, I want to amplify that. Give us a moment in time on that one.
Well, that's off script.
I was going to say, let's put Corey on the spot for a second.
I think it's so fast. So few people focus in on using a weekly planning session to that level of detail. But that's exactly the little small, it could be as simple as like, you know what? I was pouring 2 ounces of bourbon and I really should be pouring 1.5 ounces. Like it could be like little tiny things that you recognize in that moment that create that big impact by being consistent with it. Whereas people are always looking for that big thing at annual business planning, when sometimes these little weekly thoughts, I'm sure you've had many of them, but.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of them where it was like, what am I spending my time during the day doing?
Mm-hmm.
What are doing I didn't do as strict of a time accounting as when I was in my previous more corporate job, where that was extremely structured. I had it planned down to when I was on my trips every 15 minutes from 6 a.m. until 5 p.m. of where I needed to be and what I need to be doing every 15 minutes. And I'm not that structured in my real estate business.
It's one of the, when I look at somebody in their real estate business and they're trying to get control of their time and they're trying to get all these pieces in place that's going to make them successful. It's funny, if you go back to any job that maybe we had in the past, they provide that structure for you. They have the time you check in, they have the time you check out. Like, you have your things and reports you're supposed to have in by certain times, otherwise you get fired. Like, there's all these protocols that kind of happen. And real estate's one of those interesting places that if you don't have this really under control for yourself, you can kind of flounder and kind of end up in like, how in the world did I get here and what am I doing right now? And to go back to this mission and this mantra that you have for yourself, which I love that was on your phone or someplace. I've never met anybody that's had success with a vision or a mantra like that hasn't put it in a place that it just shows up in their world. It has to show up, slap you around every once in a while, remind you on a daily basis. Otherwise, it just kind of goes off into the woodwork. But I find a lot of it's subconscious. I find a lot of it is the more you put that in there, it's easy, Matt. I know you put Corey on the spot of saying like, give me but I think a lot of it is in that moment, you just find yourself making different decisions and you don't even really think that hard through it. So that's why I love that you have this. I love that it's in your world. And I think the more people had it, they would realize it's a subconscious thing when it really starts to play out, not much of a conscious side of it. If that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. And that's something that the first couple weeks that I had it still wasn't embedded in my subconscious. And the longer I've been filtering things through it, now that's just kind of part of me. And my sphere knows, my clients know that there's times where I'm not going to be available because I'm going off and I'm doing some of these things. And they're completely fine with that.
And I want to highlight too, is it takes some time for that filter to work, but it's been like a year of you applying that filter, which is not that long of a time, right? So from really just getting kind of like, hey, I'm going to make sure that I'm reviewing this filter every single week and just looking at these things, it doesn't mean we're going to make massive adjustments, or even maybe we don't even make those adjustments when we recognize them. But if you apply it week over week, all of a sudden you get 12, a little over 12 months later, and here you are. And we haven't even talked about what interruption you had in that year of getting to apply it. So 6 months into kind of working this vision for yourself and, getting your business shifted in a way, you already had shifted it from how you do it. And now you're shifting your mindset into a better place, just really building this robust foundation. And then something happens.
Before we start with what happens, you were having your best first quarter ever, right? This is going into 2024. You were having your best first quarter ever, correct?
I was.
All right.
And I looked up the stats, and it was like 300% higher than any other Q1 I've ever had in this business.
I needed you to say that real quick before you tell this adventure that you decided to go on.
Well, adventure is one way to put it. Cliff notes are.
By the way,
I don't know if Cliff Notes is the right way to describe it. Maybe it is.
This adventure that Corey is about to tell, I need to be very clear. This is a story that was told to me between 9 and 11 o'clock at night, in Corey reaching out to me about 4 months ago, Corey. You said, I want to tell you this story. And literally, I think for about an hour and a half, we sat on the phone together. So that's why I'm so excited to have you share this with our audience.
Yeah. So Cliff notes are, and use that pun intended, don't fall off a mountain. It's not as fun as it sounds.
So Corey's a mountain biker.
Yes. And I think my downhill days are done, or my wife's going to kill me. So on one of my solo trips, I decided to go out and do some mountain biking, and I went to Spider Mountain, which is the only legitimate downhill mountain biking course in Texas. They go ahead and it's like a ski lift up. You put your bike on the rack. You sit on the ski lift and they take you up to the top of the mountain and you go down. And it was a lot of fun until it wasn't. My sixth run of the day, I was going down a pretty fast blue trail. So moderate trail. I was going about 20, 25 miles an hour down the mountain, rounded a blind corner. And on the other side of the corner, about 10 feet off, was somebody standing off their bike, taking up the entire single track trail. I missed him, thankfully, but ended up lying down the bike and rolling with the bike. And I rolled over 5 different ledges, dropped vertically about 30 to 40 feet, and messed myself up pretty bad. My arm, with the radial head in my arm, if you can see the video on that, see the little scar, that's the small scar. That's only about 14 stitches or 14 staples. But the radial head sheared 30% off, and 10% of it turned to dust from the impact of the fall. The tendon that controls my fingers, and I'm right-handed, ripped through the humerus bone. And we weren't sure at the time if my knee was dislocated or badly broken. It ended up being badly broken, where the tibial plateau, which is the bottom half of your knee that looks like kind of a fist, that exploded basically. And then I had 9 fractures in my tibia.
Not a good day.
Not a good day.
Needless to say, as you said, your wife will kill you if you go downhill mountain biking again. It's interesting how fast, things in our life can change, how quickly, here you are enjoying one of your most favorite things that you can go do, which is mountain biking and going downhill riding. The fact that somebody was standing around a blind corner, they weren't in distress. They were just stopped and taking up, the space that you needed to mountain bike, to all of a sudden finding yourself at the bottom of a cliff. And obviously in a lot of pain. And you've shared with me the recovery journey of what you've been through and the trauma of the surgeries and the painkillers that didn't take hold as you went through this journey. This has been, I think the proper term is, a hell of a journey for you.
It really has been. It's been a trip. So when the whole accident probably took place in a matter of 45 seconds to a minute. And I vividly remember, because I was conscious through the fall, I get down to the bottom of the mountain and I'm propping myself up, holding myself up with my left leg so I don't slide down the mountain anymore. I got a rock under my hip. I wasn't sure if my hip was broken too or not, or if it was the rock. And the guy who caused the accident goes down to the bottom and he says, "Are you dead, dude?" Like, no, I'm alive, but I need some help. So he takes off. He says he's going to go get the staff. I don't think he ever did, because the next run down was about 10, 15 minutes later, and it was 3 paramedics on their day off. And they hung out with me. I had my phone in my right pocket, and I'm right-handed, and it was my right arm that was broken. So right before they got there, I reach into my pocket, take out my phone, start calling my wife. And I get my phone up to my ear, and the tendon just basically gives out. My arm collapses. So I put it on speakerphone. I've got the phone next to me, and I call her up and said, "Hannah, I just had a bike accident. I know my arm is broken. I don't know if my leg is broken or not, but it's in bad shape. So I'm going to go to the hospital, and I'll let you know when I get there. But I just want to let you know." And we homeschool. So she put me on speakerphone, and my daughter runs off crying because she was saying days before, like, "Don't go mountain bike, Dad. You're going to break your arm. You're going to break your leg."
My gosh.
Child, you just need to take notes, by the way, when your child starts talking, when she starts talking, just go like, all right, I'm taking that as the word of God coming through the kid. We're good.
I didn't put it on her. Like, I'm like, you jinxed me, girl, because that's going to scar subconsciously forever. But she thought I was joking with it. I'm like, "No, this is actually happening. I'll let you know when I get off the mountain, and I'll let you know when I get to the hospital."
So that was the first call. You didn't call like 911 or
I called my wife.
like, "Hey, there's no one around me. I don't know if that dude's actually getting help for me. I'm going to call my wife."
Yep.
Probably calmly like that too. I have found in situations like that, when I call my wife, she goes, "I can't tell if you're really hurt that bad. Like, are you really hurt that bad, or are you like just kind of like working your way through this?" And I had this feeling you were probably working your way through it.
It was, because it was a very calm phone call. She thought I was joking.
Yeah.
During the phone call, the mountain bike or the paramedics come through on their run. So I'm talking to her. I'm like, "Okay, I've got to go. I've got to talk to these guys. They're gonna call and help." From that timestamp until when I got to the ambulance was an hour and a half of me sitting on the mountain holding myself up, without any pain meds, without anything else like that. When the staff finally did get up to me, they came up with one of the break apart stretchers, a cardboard box, which they taped to my leg, and they straightened my arm out and put a SAM splint on there, which that was not fun.
But all really important. Like, a lot of people don't, like, I'm sure people are listening going, "Why are they straightening your arm out?" and things like that. And those are the precautions they do to save limbs and to save arms, and in those situations. So I mean, you got to be grateful for these paramedics. Do you stay in touch with these guys, by the way? Have you kept in touch with any of them?
One of them sent me a picture of, they're like, "Here, let me take a picture and show you what you fell down in case the ER wants to know," and texted that to me. And I sent him a message and sent him some of the x-rays and everything and said, just thank you for everything.
Oh, grateful that they were there in that moment, because yeah, that's major.
Yeah. So they get me, they kind of lift me up and shift me around so I can get on the stretcher. And the 4 of them, the 3 paramedics and the 1 staff, carried me up the mountain, because down was going to be even more treacherous. They tried to put me in the back seat of a 4-door truck, but the stretcher wouldn't close and the truck wouldn't drive. So then they had to move me again and put me in the bed of the truck. So I'm in the bed of the truck with one of the paramedics and my bike, and they're trying to keep my bike from falling down. They're trying to keep me from sliding out of the bed of the truck, and they're going real slow, but everything is just shattered. So I felt every bump going down. I get to the ambulance. They transfer me from the break apart stretcher into their chair. And they're like, well, we can give you a minor pain dose here, or you can wait 10 minutes and you can get something that's actually going to help you. Like, I'll wait.
I've waited this long.
Yeah, I'm already
good
in.
stuff in 10 minutes.
It's already been almost 2 hours. I'll wait. I get to the hospital and they're all waiting for me because the paramedics called. I don't know if they called 911. I think they just called the mountain. They called their buddy who was on duty, and they called the hospital themselves. They go ahead and they get me there. They have pain meds for me almost instantly, and they have me in an X-ray, like all within 5 minutes.
Wow.
X-ray comes back, and the doctor there, it was a little regional hospital. The doctor says, "I'm not touching them. Send them around."
That's comforting when the expert's like, nope.
Yeah, he's like, "Nope." I was in that hospital for a grand total of 1 hour.
Wow.
And then you're in an ambulance or something else taking you, or a helicopter or something taking you to the next one.
The ambulance take me to the next one. And so I had about 45 minutes between when they told me they're transferring me and when they actually got there and they had the room ready for me at the next hospital. In the meantime, my business is still going.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're a solo business operator. This isn't like there's disability. There isn't someone else in the office who can pick up the slack. Like, now all of a sudden business is closed, sort of, right? Because where's Corey?
Well, kind of. And this was on a Monday. I had 2 closings that Friday. One of which the appraisal came in $30,000 low that morning, and I was going to deal with it over lunch. And then I had another one where I was supposed to go ahead and drop the price of the listing, do a pretty significant price drop to get this home moved. I was going to do that over lunch too. Obviously, that didn't happen because my laptop was in the truck, which was at that point, by the time I could get to it, over an hour away. And I was in no shape to do that.
How are you going to get to guys? Can we just take a detour? Since we're transferring hospitals, might as well. Can we swing by and grab my laptop?
Exactly. Like that. It's all good. Right. So I'm sitting here and I can't hold my phone up. So I've got my phone on my chest on speakerphone, calling both the 2 different lenders involved in the transaction, the 2 different clients involved with that transaction, called a colleague of mine to help work on comps for the rebuttal, call sales manager to help do the price reduction, call the client who's having the price reduction saying, by the way, I just had this accident. I can't get this to you. I'm having somebody else send it to you. We're still going to get you taken care of. Don't worry. I'll give you a call. I'll give you a call in like a day and give you an update.
What I love about this is that sometimes we feel like we are the kingpin that is making all the pieces come together and making it all happen. And we're one of a part of people that make this journey come together for these clients. And one thing I love is that you realize, I just need to get the players involved in this. The clients are going to be okay. Everybody's going to understand. And what we sometimes think are emergencies, by the way, this was an emergency for you, this situation. But in the realm of real estate, that we all go, these are the emergencies that these people are dealing with. You know, it didn't blow these deals up, right? We made these deals continue to move forward. These people continue to close on these properties, and everything move forward, right?
They did, yeah. Both closings successfully happened that Friday. That Friday. And then the one where we dropped the price on it, I actually successfully negotiated a sales contract on that in between surgeries.
Why not?
Well, so I know we're ongoing with the story, but coming back to the mindset work that you did, because
Yeah.
I could only imagine, I mean, and anybody, and obviously, unless you're in the position, it's hard to imagine. But if I'm sitting on the side of the mountain broken, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to tell everybody, like, I'm out. I got somebody, I'll call a sales manager and be like, can you just handle this for me? Because I'm broken. I need to heal. And you're negotiating deals. What was going through your head? What was your mindset like as you're going through this experience and you're thinking about your business?
My people hired me to do this job. I need to do this job for them. I owe that to them, and this is my responsibility.
Man.
This is one of those difference, Matt. I'm looking at you, Matt, for a second, of what we watch is when people are treating this like a job and they're treating the relationships and they know these people and they know what they're going through. And it's not just like, oh, that's just a paycheck that I might not get or a closing that I might not get. It's like, no, 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 no. It's way bigger. And Corey, that's what I'm hearing from you is that was that moment is these people hired me to do a job. I'm invested in their success story in this also. And it's not work at that point in time. I find a lot of times it's not work at that point in time. It's that I'm invested in making this situation work for these people. So
Well, also highlight the your strength in your mindset, and because you're 100% right, Garrett. But Garrett, Corey, your strength in your physical strength and your mental strength at that time gave you the confidence that you could be the one to handle those things, right?
yeah,
And I want to highlight, if people are going through things, like, you don't have to take it on yourself. I mean, but doing the prep work is going to allow you to have the strength to handle it if you choose to, but you can also have the structure and the systems in place to also have support. And you did have support too. Yeah, you were able to call some colleagues to come in and help because your laptop was in your truck where you started your journey, and unfortunately wasn't where you ended the journey that day. So
Yeah, it was really awesome to be able to make those phone calls too, because the second I made some of those, as a solo business owner, you always have that fear of what happens. I can't rely on anybody else. I am in this myself. There's nobody here with me. And when I reached out, the love and the care I got from the people that I called up, it was instantaneous. It was, what do you need? I've got something going on. I'm gonna move that to make sure this emergency is solved.
now, and I'm sure your clients probably had similar sentiments. If you called a Facebook lead and
Mhm.
said, "Hey, by the way, what just happened?" That Facebook would be like, "Oh gosh, that's terrible. Well, let me go call the next agent that I was going to be,
yeah.
working with." Right?
Yeah.
Instead, you had clients who were probably like, "Gosh, are you okay? What can I do for you?"
Mhm. I had when we so I was in the hospital for 12 nights, and when we got back, we didn't have to cook a meal for like 2 months. We had so many people coming over and just supporting us and like, here's a meal because I couldn't move. And the first night in the hospital, kind of rewinding a little bit, the very first night that I had in the hospital, I was there by myself because I told my wife, like, don't come down tonight. We're going to come up with a plan. We came up with a plan. My brother drove down with her to be able to break down my camp and pick up my truck. And then he took that back. And then she stayed with me for a couple of days. We just, please be here when I try to get out of the surgery. We didn't know what the surgery was going to be or how extensive it was going to be or anything. It was just, you're having surgery at 7 o'clock in the morning.
So to kind of put some of these pieces together, Matt, you were saying if this was maybe a Zillow lead, they would be like, all right, hey, great. Sorry you're going through that right now, but how are we going to get me taken care of? I'm going this route. Corey, to tie this back into your first quarter you were having and switching over to a very solid running now relationship style business of trust and friendship and your team, your people that you've built this business around. One of the things you said to me is I've always led, this is your words when we were kind of preparing for all this, I've always had a servant heart towards others. And I think you really leaned into that in this last couple years is taking that servant heart and putting it into your people. You'd mentioned to me like the love and the support, as you said, you never had to cook a meal here for X, however long that was. Like people poured back into you. And I watched this as we build businesses like this It's way bigger than just the business. This is way bigger than just real estate.
Yeah, it's life with everything. And it was incredible to see that. I have never been one to really accept help. And this was forced on me where you can't do this all on your own. You can't have everything. That was actually one of so the first surgery, I had 3 surgeries in 10 days. The first surgery, they evaluated my arm and said, "Oh yeah, this is bad." Um,
Was that the diagnosis? Is that what it just said on the report? Very bad.
yeah, the surgeon comes and he goes, "Yeah, you have a terrible triad, or in other words, your arm is aft."
Oh,
It's like he's like, "Yeah, leave it in a splint. Don't move it. And your leg is even worse." So they put an X fix, and if you want to see a medieval device, Google an external fixation device where they bolted basically a couple of rails with a 1/4 inch bolt, 2 into my femur and 2 into my tibia down below the break to keep it supported, and waited until the swelling could go down. And I was adamant the very first time, like, I'm going to get out of here. I want to be out of here by Thursday. I can have the surgery tomorrow. Give me a day to recover. I'll leave the next day.
how did that work out?
Not great.
All right. Well, yeah, it's good to have goals. Good to have goals. Good to voice goals to your doctors and others to tell them this is how this is going to work.
I told him and said, "Look, I'm going to get out of here on Thursday." And the doctor said, "Okay, if you can move, you could do it." After the surgery, I couldn't move, so I didn't do it.
Hey, at least you had a doctor who was willing to explore that, not shut you down right away and be like, "No, you're not leaving." He's like, "All right, well, if you can, we'll let you go," and let the results kind of speak for themselves. But you did get out of the hospital, you did return home, and now you are mobile. And in a real estate business, kind of like being able to go to houses, isn't that important to running the business? But now you're not able to do that.
Yeah, it was an interesting shift. So I was on a full bed rest where I couldn't leave. I could get myself out of bed and into a wheelchair, and then have somebody wheel me to a recliner in the living room and help me get out of the wheelchair and into the recliner. And that was my life for about a month after the accident.
Were you able to handle or do any real estate, or was that just kind of like, let's set that off to on side right now? Because you've had an incredible year this year. So I want to kind of put the pieces of, you had this incredible first quarter. You've had this amazing adventure that you've gone on that we're talking about, and you still are pulling together this incredibly strong year. When were you able to kind of say, okay, I can start doing some real estate, start helping people again?
I had 2 listings, one which we put under contract in the hospital, and the other was a lease listing, which went under contract about 2 weeks after I got back. I handled those, but all of my buyers were waiting for me. I let everybody know. Everybody kind of knew, and they're like, "Well," I said, "If you see anything, I have colleagues that can help you. There will be my eyes there, and I'll handle everything else." And the response from every single one of them was, "No, we're going to wait for you."
Okay, this is really important. I have watched this so many times as these really strong relationship businesses are built, is that you get incredible freedom. I mean, in this situation, you needed it so you could recover. But I've also watched it where people have picked up and taken their entire family on a 2-week vacation to Europe. And the agent's going, what's going to happen to my business while I'm gone? I'm like, if your relationships are strong, they'll probably wait for you. You'll probably have people that will come when you come back going, oh, I'm so happy you're back because we're ready to do something now that you're back. And you literally got this in this moment of your need, but what an incredible, thing to watch kind of unfold.
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible. All of my buyers just they waited,
Oh,
and uh, I'll never forget the first time we went back out for showings. It was with a buyer who was in the process before my accident. They waited for 3 months, and when I finally got I wasn't quite ready to get in the walker and walk with them. So I showed the houses in a wheelchair. And my wife drove me. We looked at 5 houses after I did a 2-hour PT session, which not a great idea time-wise.
Yeah,
That was kind of painful.
That.
So I ended my 2-hour PT session. She picks me up. She puts the wheelchair in the trunk, and we've got the 2 kids in the back seat, and we're driving, and I'm showing 5 houses. She gets out of the car, gets the wheelchair for me. I transfer from the car into the wheelchair, kind of wheel myself into the house, show the house, get back out. She loads the wheelchair back in, and we go to the next home.
I want to meet your wife someday, by the way. What the teamwork of amazing relationship like that is incredible. So that's amazing. Your mindset. I want to go back to your mindset for a second. You've got this. You're doing all this stuff now. Now you're showing property. You got your wife with you. She's out, wheeling you around in a wheelchair, making sure this is all happening. Here we have this mantra again that you have for yourself. At any point during this time, did your subconscious mind start to fight with you on this vision that you had, or were you able to stay really clear on it all the way through this journey?
There were some dark days in there.
Yeah.
I'd say probably one of the darkest ones was right after I'd had my arm surgery. They tell you after you get out, it was about a 3-hour long surgery to repair everything and put everything back together. And they tell you when you get out, try to move your fingers as much as possible. You've got a nerve block. It's going to help with the pain. Don't worry about it. And I was able to move my fingers right after the surgery. And then I had a big wave where everything just went numb, and I freaked out about it. Called the doctor. The doctor said, yeah, don't worry about it. That's normal. Keep trying to move your fingers. So every 2 minutes or so, I'm trying to move my fingers. Surgery's at 7:00 in the morning. By about 6:30, pain starts to set in. Then anesthesia's wearing off. By 7:30, the anesthesia is completely gone and there's no nerve block that's working. So I've got the trauma of the surgery, and then I've got the trauma of me moving my fingers every 2 minutes for the last 10 hours. And it was just absolutely unbearable. Their night nurses came in. They do their shift changes about 8:00, and I had the same night nurse as I did the very first night I was in the hospital. And the first thing she says when she gets in there is, "You don't look good."
And she had seen you when you came in, which presumably you really didn't look good then.
She goes, "You look worse than when I first saw you." And we had to go through, and she fought for me with everything, like getting me what I needed. And it took to about 11:30 until my pain subsided. And at that time, because we have two kids in a little hospital room and was 4 hours away from home, we couldn't have the kids there. We didn't want to get a hotel room because that's not fair for the kids to be locked up like that. So we had somebody watching the kids, and my wife was going back and forth between Austin and Dallas. That night, I'm like, okay, well, the surgery's fine. The last one was fine. Go ahead and head back to the kids. Come back in a couple of days. So I was by myself in that room. And I got a phone call from my mom during that time, and she helped walk me through this as an ER nurse or an ex-ER nurse. But also one of the things that she said was, you don't always have to be Superman.
Wow.
And that kind of broke me. And kind of the mindset there of, okay, I don't have to always have this. She was like, you can have some down times. You don't always have to be the rock for everybody. And that was a very, very dark night as far as pain and everything. And then the next morning, it was back to the very first night I was in the hospital of, okay, am I going to lie down and die? Or am I going to get up and fight and make this happen for my family?
Well, Corey, we were talking about this the other day about the book that we're reading together. Well, we just read it. You're reading it now, which is the 12-hour walk. And in there where they talk about the ones and tens, and you got to experience some ones to really be able to appreciate the tens in your life. And I remember as you were telling me this story, I was like, well, there's your one for you. Okay. There's your one. Corey, you are allowed to see tens that a lot of other people are not allowed to see because of this journey you've gone on.
It was definitely a journey. And I had a couple other dark nights where pain was just so high that it was almost unmanageable. But then the morning comes and you get to see things through a fresh perspective, and allowing yourself to be able to feel those ones and say, I'm not going to be here forever, but I want to get back to the 10. So how can I go ahead? I can be here at a 1, but I'm not going to be here. I need to get back to a 10.
Well, so the recovery timeline, you mentioned 3 months. You had the 2 listings, one sale, one lease, and then your buyers waited 3 months. Now you're kind of mobile, right? What's from a business perspective then? Now you're getting back into it because obviously, cash flow is important for running the family too.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like now? You're getting back in. You just had an outstanding first quarter, your best ever. What did second quarter look like? And now you're halfway through the year, and we have some. The ending of this story, which brings us to today, is a very happy one.
Yeah.
But you're halfway through the year. Like my mind is like, okay, well, we just had an awesome one. We lost this momentum. 3 months sitting around and not really able to serve our clients. They waited. That's amazing. How does that movement work for you then in terms of making sure that your business is still going as you get back into the game, kind of?
So I really just I hit pause on everything for about 2.5 months. And during that time, I had 2 closings in Q2, and that was it. I had a $350,000 home close and $1,000 or $1,600 lease close. And that was
so not a lot of cash flow those months.
almost no cash flow. And then in the meantime, we're getting all these bills coming in too. And I'm paying cash out of pocket for PT, which is $100 a session, 1 to 2 times a week. Thankfully, we had a really good Q1.
So it was about 4 months into your recovery, I think, is where you came back into my life, right?
Yes. So I started kind of picking everything back up, and it's like, okay, well, I can't just sit on the couch scrolling Facebook and picking up, because I got into some bad habits during that. Like, I can't do anything. I'll buy a Nintendo Switch, and I started playing games again.
Oh, no, that's
So, like, I can't do anything else. I can barely move. I'll play a video game with my kids. I've kicked that now. Did that for about 3 months. And that was it. I'm sitting in bed and like, okay, I'm going to start trying to do more around the house, and it can be a little bit more mobile. I can do a little bit more. So I actually started listening to podcasts again, and my wife was putting the 2 kids to bed because I can't get up the stairs at this point. Physically, I couldn't make it up the stairs. So I've got headphones in, I'm listening to the podcast, and it was the introductory one where you were introducing life at 10 tenths.
yeah.
And I'm folding laundry, and I'm able to stand up, and I'm like, wow, how crazy is it that I'm thankful that I can stand up to fold laundry?
The little things.
It was the little
Amazing.
things. In that podcast, you were talking about, well, if things are bad, like how bad is it really? And I just was thinking back, and I finished up the podcast, and like, I think I have Garrett's phone number still on my cell phone. I looked, and I did. I had your phone number still. So I sent you a text and I said, hey, can we chat about this life of 10 tenths stuff? And you sent me a text back within a couple minutes saying, "Are you free to call?" So we called. It was like 9:30 at night, and we
I
talked about.
don't usually do that. There was something about it that made me say, I feel like I need to have this conversation.
But we ended up talking about everything, and just the way that you guys are really focusing in on just serving and giving and continuing to pour into your community really has helped me on my journey. And the benefit of being in this community has been huge, not only for my mindset, but also giving me little things to go ahead and continue to move my business forward. And Q3 was very big for me. As of right now, we're at end of September recording this. I'm at 105% of my gross volume of 23.
Of the entire 23, not
Of
year
the
to date, year over year. 12, your 9 months with 3 months of you doing nothing. So kind of
Yeah.
6 months of action, you've done 105% of what you did 12 months last year.
correct.
Well, and I got to say, kudos to you too, for as you're standing there folding laundry, making the mental decision of like, okay, I've played enough video games. I'm going to get myself back into the mindset of what I need to do to get this business going. And then you just start showing up consistently for yourself, for your family, for your business, for your clients. I'm grateful that we started the community at the same time as you kind of were thinking about getting, making these mental notes for yourself. But you're the one that showed up and started to put in the work again to then create this Q3 that you're experiencing.
Yeah. And it was just getting back to the basics. And actually, we never talked about this beforehand, but Q1, Compass had a big challenge of in-person connections. How many people can do the most in-person connections? Throughout that challenge, until my accident, I was in the top 15.
Wow.
And it really pissed me off because that accident knocked me off, and I ended up finishing in like 32. And I wanted to be in the top 25.
But you
So
know what?
still we're in, I mean, 30, I mean, I would imagine there's a lot of Compass agents and particularly in the Texas area and the Dallas area. So
Well,
32 is not bad.
this is nationwide.
Oh, so this is nationwide.
Yeah,
So
Corey's not messing
32 in the
around. We're going.
nation with, being bedridden is pretty darn good.
So Corey, I mean, so you're obviously you listen to the podcast. Obviously, we connected. You've been an awesome. There's people that engage in our 11 circle coaching group that you're a part of that bring so much value, and they learn and they share and they grow together. And I want to as we're going down this journey, you're now back in the real estate game. You're figuring out this new world. You're making it work for yourself. You were listening to one of the episodes and you got a hold of me and said, "Okay, Garrett, I heard you talk about this on an episode. I'm going to go implement this. I'm going to put this together and see what this works." And this was the idea of offering a car with the actual listing, basically saying, "Hey, you know what? If you buy this house, you get a car that comes with it." I want to talk a little bit about this because not only did you take the idea and run with it, which is a totally coachable moment. When I watch somebody do that, I'm like, "Oh, look, a coachable person just showed up in my world. That's amazing." That element, but then you ran with it. And I'd love to tell a little bit of this story. I know we're a long ways into this interview, but I think it's important to share this because this was a good win for you.
Oh, I love it. So I've always tried to think outside of the box with some of these things. And that was you mentioned the idea of including a car with the sale of a home. And I was out driving and I was going to a showing. And as you said that, I instantly thought of a listing that I've had. And it was priced at $2.8 million, or 2.775. And we needed to do a price drop. Everybody in all of our comps were doing a price drop of about $100,000.
And it was quiet, right? There was no
It was
activity
quiet.
happening on this. Okay.
And
Yeah,
how long
so
had this property been on the market for?
we had listed it first week of January.
Hmm.
And at that time, I think it was late July.
Yeah, it had gone on this entire journey with you. It had been through the ringer with you.
Yeah. And there's a whole backstory to that house too, because I had literally been working on that house since 2020. I
Wow.
helped the
All right.
client build it from scratch, just help them custom design the floor plan, every design meeting. This is what tiles it should be. This is what the front door should look like. Everything. I am intimately familiar with this home.
So it's sitting quiet, no showings. You need a price reduction. How did you approach this with your people?
So I called up the seller and said, well, instead of every week I do updates. This is what's going on in your market. This is what your direct competition is doing. What's new, what's done, gone into contract, what's reduced in price, what's closed. And it had been a couple months. And like, there's nothing happening. Now all your competition's starting to take $100,000 price reductions. What if instead of doing that, we go ahead and we drop $25,000? We're going to refresh the listing, cancel this listing, do another one, and include a $75,000 car. And he goes, that sounds like a great marketing ploy. That should get some eyes on it.
When
Like,
you
okay, well,
called me, I was like, "Oh my gosh, he did it."
so it was hysterical because I go to the Sewell dealership, Sewell Audi dealership in McKinney. I walk up to the front desk and I'm hobbling in with my cane because I'm still on a cane. And like, I would like to buy a car, but it's not for me. I don't know who it's for, and I don't know when I want to buy it.
And the receptionist there was like, okay.
Well,
Yeah,
this is
that
new.
was about it. So she goes, well, tell me more. I'm like, okay, I'm a real estate agent. I would like to include it in the sale of this home. I need a creative salesman. Who do you have that's really creative? So she goes back, she gets somebody, comes back with me. We go sit down at his desk and I go through the whole thing with him. So, well, I'd love, can we park it in the garage? And I don't want the keys. I don't want the liability of this. So he goes off, talks to the manager, comes back and says, we would love to partner with you on this. I can't leave the car there because it's inventoried. So if you buy it, we can do it, but it doesn't sound like that's going to work. So you can borrow one for a photo shoot. Like, that would be great. So let's look at what's available for $75,000. I want something sexy. He's like, well, we've got a bright red E5 Cabriolet right here that's all washed up. Do you want to take that tomorrow for some photos?
Yes, please.
I love it.
Would love that. You let me know what time and I'll be there. So he parks the car on the driveway. We park it in a couple different spots. I take some photos. We do all the paperwork. We had to jump through all the legal hoops of, is this actually legal in this current environment?
Well, and this is where I was going to say is like, this is where all what we refer to as the crabs come out of the industry. All the people that come out that say, you can't do that. That's not possible. You're breaking all the rules. So, like, you checking out to see, like, is this really something that we can do legally? Probably a good thing because, yeah, in this environment, yeah, you're going to have people taking a look at everything you're doing.
We ran it through MLS to make sure MLS was okay with it. We ran it through Compass Legal. We ran it through everybody. And we had to do a couple of disclaimers on there. And that was it. I had some lenders, actually a couple local lenders come up and say, well, that's inducement to buy.
Okay.
Actually, it's not, because inducement to buy would be over 6%. This is 2.25% of the purchase price. So it's not inducement to buy.
Wow.
This is a non-realty item.
All right. So activity. What happens? Okay. So you take your photos, you get your postcards done, you get your marketing. This thing goes out and hits the internet, hits the general population. What happens with this?
We had a spike of about 10 times what the highest volume, like traffic level was. I held an open house there that first Sunday afterwards, and I think we had 30 groups come through this house.
Wow. And the car's not there because it can't be there.
The car's
So-
not there. And for this house, like I never put up any open house signs there because I don't want a bunch of people going in randomly to a $2.8 million house, $2.8 million house that can't qualify for it. There's a lot of legalities there. So I never put an open house sign. It was people who saw that online and were searching for it that knew about it.
Amazing. Amazing.
We ended up having 4 offers, I believe, come through it. We ended up working one all cash, closed in 2 weeks. They did not want the car. So we made all parties sign. I signed it. The buyer's agent signed it. Both the buyers and the sellers all signed it saying, there is no car involved with the purchase of the sale.
So we talk about, okay, so there's lots of elements here, but in a relationship style of selling too, like the amount of communication, the amount of relationships between the dealership and others, and just the communication with other real estate agents that puts you on the map of somebody they should be paying attention to and thinking outside the box and growing in a different way. Like there's a lot of benefits around this simple one listing that changed it from it just being another $2.5 million home on the marketplace to something that people are now talking about.
Yeah, it blew up.
Oh, it's so cool.
After being on the market for so long. So, okay, so you get this under contract, you close it. I got asked, what's the relationship with like the dealership? Because like they got some press, but they didn't get the sale of a car.
They were happy with it. They were excited with the press. That dealership runs things very relationally as well. And actually, the buyer owns an Audi.
Oh, there you go.
A little subliminal messaging there of like, oh, Audi owners would go great with this house.
They saw the marketing and they're like, I already know what my car is going to look like in the front yard. This is perfect. Well,
so you've gone through this journey, Corey, and you come out of it with creativeness. The journey of the accident, you come out of that with creativeness. Now, how are you feeling today, and how are you looking forward and looking ahead into the fourth quarter here? And with that, what advice would you give to an agent, whether they've gone through a tough time or anything, or just giving advice to an agent who's like, I really want to, I'm struggling with my business and how I feel about my business. You've been through a lot. What would you share?
Just keep moving forward. Going into Q4 with the momentum that I have, Q4 could very well be one of the biggest Q4s I've ever had as well. I hope so. Who knows with all the election and everything going on, but I'm very optimistic with it. As far as advice, I would say stay in contact with your people. Find a good group that you can resonate with and really dive in there in addition to your people. And you're not in this all alone. You can have a support network.
I think that's incredible advice. I think, for people listening, a lot of agents, and I've said it before too, this can be a lonely business, real estate, entrepreneurship in general. But it doesn't have to be if you choose to surround yourself with others who are going through that journey with you, and they're there, they're in your office. They may not be at your brokerage, but they're in your area. Or they're in the 11 circle too. Right?
Well, and that's what I wanted to just, Corey, say thank you to you for how you have engaged the 11 circle. And, we have some amazing people that are coming into this right now. And it's fun to watch you guys share. It's fun to watch you and Charles Black take your buyer's packets and be like, here's mine, take a look at it and share inside there. Because one of my visions with this community in the 11 circle is to watch all of you help each other grow with like-minded individuals that are all building their foundations, growing together. And, Matt and I want to be there to facilitate it. So to watch you and others start to lean into it with this vision that both Matt and I have, it literally, I can't tell you how happy it makes me feel, man. I literally could probably bring me to tears if I sat here and talked about it too much. So I want to say thank you to you for engaging our world the way that you are.
Well, thank you. And thank you for providing all that value. In addition to that, some of the success labs that you guys are doing have been phenomenal. I had my lender join in with me on one of them with the corporate affinity success lab, going and diving deep into that. And we're actually in the process of building out two different levels of corporate affinity plans.
Wow.
One for investments and one for first-time home buyers, teachers, firefighters, nurses, all of that. That's a big part of our 2025 goal.
So we're going to have you as an actual person in the Success Lab, is what you're telling me, as you guys get this all put together, because that's what people need to hear, is people really putting it together in real time. Just like putting a car for a listing. I mean, Corey, keep going, man. I love it.
Corey, this is incredible, man. We could talk for a long time too. But if people want to connect with you in any way, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Shoot me an email. My email is Corey@chambershomegroup.com, or I'm not going to give my cell phone number out. I'm a real estate agent, though. You can find it
You
very
probably
easily.
figure that one out.
If you can't find my cell phone number, I'm doing a bad job. But you can give me a call, shoot me a text. I'm happy to answer any questions or be here as a resource for anybody. Just I'm very grateful again for the group and being able to be in such a great community.
Yeah.
Well, Corey's amazing. And if you just look up Corey Chambers, Compass, Plano, Texas, you will find him very easily. And again, the more I get to know you, sir, you are somebody that I know I could stand behind and say, if you need somebody there to help anybody with real estate, Corey's a good guy to rely on. So,
well, Corey, I want to thank you for taking the time to share with us, and thank you for being who you are and going through the journeys that you've been through, making the mindset shift, developing that vision statement, and living by it, because I think that's the true impact. I mean, we appreciate the sharing of the story, but the true impact that you're making is out there every day, living by those standards and impacting others because of that standard that you live by. So I want to thank you for that and really appreciate you.
Thank you, gentlemen. It was fun being out here.
Yeah, it was great. Well, so guys, thanks for tuning in, everybody, for listening to this incredible story. If you want to be connected with Corey inside an incredible program that Garrett and I run called the 11 Circle, which is the coaching program for Life at 1010. So you can go to lifeat10tenths.com to learn about that, or access just our, first level membership for Life at 1010. So you can also join it in there and experience some little bonuses that are a little bit beyond just what we do here on the podcast and on YouTube. And if you are on YouTube, click subscribe, give this video a like, drop a comment of what you took away from it, and hit that notification bell. That's what they tell us to say, so that it helps.
Share.
Oh, and share. Right. That's the big one that I'm supposed to tell people.
If you know somebody that needs to hear Corey's journey, someone that you're like, you needed to hear this, please share. I'd appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, thanks, everybody. We'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks, everybody.